As the grand bells of the Vatican tolled and millions of eyes turned to St. Peter's Basilica, a new era was born. Pope Leo had just been crowned. White smoke, golden robes, and chants in Latin filled the air. Cameras flashed. The crowd wept. It was supposed to be a celebration of unity, faith, and the beginning of a renewed spiritual journey for billions. But behind the curtains of this holy event, a chilling silence echoed from an entire continent, Africa. Where were the African cardinals? Why weren't their voices heard? Why didn't we see their usual strength, energy, and presence at the center of this sacred ritual? Something felt wrong. This wasn't just about a change in leadership, it was about power, politics, and the quiet suppression of those who dare to speak up. Let's uncover what really happened behind the scenes of Pope Leo's rise, and why Africa, the heart of global Christianity, was left in the shadows. Chapter 1: The Inauguration That Shook the World. The world watched as Pope Leo stepped onto the balcony, smiling and waving. He looked peaceful, strong, holy. But beneath that peaceful image, many insiders in the Vatican whispered of tension. For the first time in decades, African cardinals were barely seen during the election process. Most were left out of major decisions. Some were even advised to remain silent, claiming it was not their time. Why now? Why during such a historic moment? Sources suggest that several African cardinals raised concerns about corruption, Western dominance in the Vatican, and the neglect of Africa's growing Christian population. Instead of being embraced, they were quietly pushed aside. Chapter 2: Africa, the beating heart of Christianity. Africa is no longer just a mission field. It is now one of the fastest-growing Christian continents in the world. With over 700 million believers, Africa plays a massive role in shaping the future of the Church. Yet, despite this explosive growth, African leaders are rarely given seats of influence in Rome. Their views on tradition, family, sexuality, and morality often clash with the more liberal voices in Europe and America. Was this why they were silenced during Pope Leo's rise? Was their loyalty to biblical values now seen as a threat? Chapter 3: The Vatican's Quiet War and Dissent. Insiders claim that during the weeks leading up to the papal conclave, some African cardinals who voiced strong opinions were excluded from closed-door meetings. One anonymous source said, "The Africans came prepared with questions, proposals, and passion. But they were told to keep quiet, or risk being labeled or divisive." In Vatican language, divisive often means dangerous to the power structure. Some even claim African candidates were blacklisted from consideration, despite their qualifications and popularity among the faithful. Chapter 4: Prophesies, Power, and Pope Leo's Mysterious Agenda. Some believers are calling Pope Leo's rise the fulfillment of ancient Catholic prophecies, where the Church would be tested by internal division. Others believe this is simply another move by the Vatican to tighten its grip, choosing leaders that align with global political trends rather than spiritual conviction. Pope Leo is known for his progressive views, his links to wealthy European donors, and his desire to modernize the faith. But many African cardinals had warned that modernization without truth leads to spiritual collapse. Was silencing them a way to clear the path for Pope Leo's new agenda? Chapter 5: Will Africa stay silent? The African Church is strong, bold, and growing. But this moment has left a deep scar. Many African believers feel betrayed, not just by Rome, but by a system that keeps ignoring their voice. Some are now calling for a new council. Others whisper of forming stronger, independent Christian alliances across Africa. Whatever happens next, one thing is clear: Africa will not stay silent forever. Chapter 6: The African Candidates Who Never Stood a Chance. Long before the white smoke appeared, there were whispers of African candidates, men of deep faith, intelligence, and leadership. Names like Cardinal Arins of Nigeria, Cardinal Turkson of Ghana, and others floated through the hearts of millions who hoped for a shift in history. But one by one, these names disappeared from the shortlist. Why? Reports suggest their commitment to traditional doctrine and biblical truth made them too conservative for the Vatican's current direction. An anonymous cleric revealed, One African candidate was told flat out that his views on same-sex marriage and abortion would be problematic for global unity. In truth, it wasn't about unity. It was about control. Chapter 7: Global Media and the Manipulation of Perception. When Pope Leo was announced, the global media painted him as a breath of fresh air, a unifier, and a modern pope for modern times. But few media outlets questioned the absence of African participation. Few asked why the Church's fastest-growing continent had been made nearly invisible. Was it intentional? Some say yes. African cardinals were not just silenced inside the Church, but also outside, through media blackout, interrupted interviews, and denied platforms. The story was carefully crafted: one pope, one vision, no opposition. But truth, no matter how buried, always finds light. Chapter 8: The Whispering Priests and the Spirit of Resistance. Across the African continent, whispers are turning into roars. Priests, bishops, and Christian youth are beginning to speak up. In Nigeria, a group of priests released a statement saying, "We bless the new pope, but we do not bless the silencing of our fathers." In South Africa, a youth-led Christian coalition is pushing for reform within the Vatican and demanding equal voice in global church matters. A spiritual fire is rising, not one of rebellion, but of righteous resistance. Not against the Pope, but against the injustice done to the truth. Chapter 9: What this means for the future of the Church. This event marks a turning point. Pope Leo may be the leader, but the Church is no longer roams alone. Africa is no longer waiting for permission, it is stepping forward. The Vatican must now decide. Will it listen to the drumbeat of revival coming from the global south? Or will it continue to shut the doors on the very people God is raising up? Either way, one thing is certain: a silent Africa is no longer possible. And the Church will never be the same again. Closing words. There is a battle, not just for the Church, but for its soul. And if you feel it too, if your spirit is stirring, then subscribe and join this journey. Because this is more than news. It's prophecy in motion.